The Formula One paddock had a rhythm of its own. It never truly slept. Even at 6 in the morning, freight cases rolled across the asphalt, mechanics disappeared beneath half-built cars, journalists rehearsed their introductions into invisible cameras, and somewhere in the distance an engine fired to life, echoing through the empty grandstands. To most people, it looked like controlled chaos. To Dr. Aurelia De Smet, it looked exhausting. She adjusted the accreditation badge hanging around her neck for what felt like the 100th time that morning. Head of Human Performance. The words still felt unreal. 3 weeks ago, she had been working with Olympic cyclists in Belgium. Now she was standing inside one of the most competitive environments in professional sport. She had expected curious looks. She hadn't expected everyone to stop talking when she walked into the garage. Mechanics glanced up from the front suspension. Engineers paused mid-conversation. Someone whispered something she couldn't quite hear. Perfect. Exactly the welcome she had hoped for.
Dr. De Smet?
She turned. A woman in team kit extended her hand with an apologetic smile.
I'm Emma, the team coordinator. Sorry about
She gestured vaguely toward the staring mechanics.
them.
They're evaluating the new hire?
They're wondering why someone with no Formula One experience is suddenly in charge of keeping their drivers alive.
Aurelia laughed. Fair enough. Emma leaned closer.
For what it's worth, the team principal personally insisted on bringing you here. That doesn't happen often.
Before Aurelia could answer, the atmosphere inside the garage shifted. Not subtly, instantly. Conversations stopped. Cameras appeared from nowhere. Mechanics stepped aside without being asked. Someone muttered, "He's here." Aurelia looked toward the entrance. A tall man stepped inside, race suit tied around his waist, dark sunglasses shielding his eyes despite the fluorescent lights. Confident, relaxed, dangerously handsome. He acknowledged almost everyone with a nod, but never slowed his pace. Luca. Morning. Morning, champ. The replies followed him like echoes. So that was Luca Moretti, the team's #1 driver, world championship contender, the man whose face covered half the billboards she'd passed on the way from the airport. He looked less intimidating in person, until he looked directly at her. He stopped walking. For a second, just one, they studied each other. His eyes flicked to her accreditation, then back to her face.
The new specialist?
His voice was lower than she'd expected. Emma nodded.
Luca, this is Dr. Aurelia De Smet.
Aurelia offered her hand. Nice to meet you. Instead of shaking it immediately, he tilted his head ever so slightly.
You don't look nervous.
She smiled. I've worked with Olympic champions before.
And?
They're usually easier to manage than racing drivers. A mechanic somewhere behind them let out a choked laugh. Another one looked horrified. Luca stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. Not the polished smile he gave television cameras. A real one. Small. Genuine. Interesting.
I guess we'll find out.
He said before finally taking her hand. His grip was warm. Steady. Far too steady for someone meeting a complete stranger. Something about that brief touch lingered a fraction longer than either of them intended. Neither noticed the cameras outside the garage, but someone else did. And from the neighboring garage, another driver watched the exchange with quiet interest. He hadn't expected to see Aurelia here, not after all these years. Adrian Novak smiled to himself. Well, this season had just become a lot more interesting.